The recent NAR lawsuit has reshaped the real estate landscape, making buyer's agreements more important than ever. This agreement clarifies the agent's roles, outlines compensation terms, and ensures transparency in transactions, especially as traditional commission structures face scrutiny. It protects both buyers and agents, defines fiduciary duties, and helps avoid misunderstandings while aligning with evolving legal standards. Whether you're buying your first home or investing, understanding the role of a buyer's representation agreement is key in navigating these industry changes with confidence. Hi guys, I'm Daphne Quay, your boss lady realtor here in Austin, Texas. And if you think about buying or selling a home in the Austin area, you can contact me. My contact information is in the description below. You can also set up a direct one-on-one video call with me. Just follow the link in the description. And if you happen to be watching my videos from any other state or any other country and you're needing to buy or sell a home there, contact me as well, because I have realtor partners all over the Americas and honestly all over the world that are ready, willing, and able to help. In August of 2024, we had some pretty big changes come into play into the real estate industry. As you may or may not have heard, there was a lawsuit from NAR, National Association of Realtors, which basically obligates all realtors all over the US to have a signed buyer's representation agreement with their buyer clients before starting to look at homes. I did another video like this, really diving into the NAR lawsuit and explaining what it means, the changes that it's going to imply, etc. And if you haven't seen that yet, I will link it somewhere here in the video or share it in the description so you can watch that and see what that is all about. I've been having a lot of conversations with home buyer clients, and one of the big conversations that we have, of course, is about the buyer representation agreement. I think every town and every state is probably going to have their own version. I thought it would be a good idea to share our buyer representation agreement with you guys so you know pretty much what to expect and what it means. Just so you understand the weight of the situation, I want to share with you a little bit about how we used to go about doing business before this rule of having the buyer representation agreement was implemented. So prior to August 17th, 2024, buyer clients would come to us and we would do a buyer's consultation, talk about what they were looking for. We would send homes back and forth and basically set up tours to go look at the homes. We'd look at the homes, find one that they liked, make an offer, we would negotiate, it would get accepted, and then essentially we would close a month later. It was also implied, or I would say expected, that the selling party would always be the one responsible for paying both realtors. So in Austin, for instance, most realtors will make 3% on the sale of a home. And if you were selling a home, if you were a seller, homeowner, standard commission was 6% of the sales price. And you as a seller were responsible for paying both the listing agent as well as the buyer's realtor. That was basically that. That was, I would say, kind of like what people thought was the standard, and folks would go about doing business in that way. After August 17th, 2024, when this NAR law was officially put into play, we now have to get a buyer's representation agreement signed with our buyer prior to looking at homes. Like I said earlier in this video, the buyer's representation agreement outlines fiduciary duties, compensation terms, and ensures transparencies in transactions. Basically, this document is saying that we have a working professional relationship, that it will also outline how long we expect to be working together, and that could be extended or shortened if necessary, and how much the realtor is getting paid and potentially by who. So for this video, I'm going to show you a copy of our buyer's representation agreement so you can see exactly what is on there and what to expect. As you can see, this is a 2-page document. There are essentially 9 paragraphs here. I'm just gonna go over the most pertinent ones and the ones that are gonna matter most in your real estate transaction. Looking at paragraph 1, it says properties. Basically, this is saying what kind of property are we looking at? Most of the time, it's gonna be residential. Of course, you can be buying land, commercial, etc. For geographic area, usually I put the county or counties that we're gonna be looking in. So if you're looking in Austin and only wanna be in Austin, we would just put in Travis County. Number 2 is length of agreement. Most of the time I do my buyer's representation agreements for 3 months or so. Could be a little bit longer, could be a little bit shorter. Now, there are exceptions where I have a client that just wants to go look at one house because they're curious to see if it would even be a good fit. Then I will make the buyer's representation agreement good for like 2 days, just to give us some leeway if that's what they're needing. Number 3, agency disclosure. This is essentially saying that your buyer's agent is working for you. There's no entanglement with the seller, etc. They're not doing dual agency. Let's jump down to paragraph number 6, which I think is the meat and potatoes of this document. This is really kind of what has ruffled the most feathers. Broker fees. this portion of this document, I think, can be really intimidating for a home buyer because essentially it makes it seem like the buyer is responsible to pay the realtor, which in full transparency, I guess technically they would be, depending on the setup, depending on the agreement that you have with your agent if you're a home buyer. I'm gonna do my best to explain to you what this paragraph means. I'm not an attorney, you guys, but I'm trying to paraphrase to make it as clear as possible. So bear with me. If the broker does a lot of work to help you find a home, then you as a buyer agree to pay the money or the broker fee. But if the broker only shows you houses and doesn't really do much else and you end up not buying anything, well, then you really don't owe them anything. Now, even if you do buy a house, according to this document, even if you do buy a house after this deal, the broker, and then we have the two boxes that we check. You as the buyer can choose to check either one of them. You can do the first one. Normally we put 3%, and then the second one, I guess you would say exactly, and then you have a set amount of dollars that you're willing to pay a realtor. There's a couple things on here that I want to mention. So for the most part, we check the first box and we usually put 3%. Now, this is negotiable, and it becomes even more negotiable with the selling party. So let's say we agreed up to 3% and you find a home that you like. Now, in full transparency, in this very strong buyer's market, home sellers are still very much expecting to pay both realtor fees. And this is kind of how it becomes negotiable. So let's say we put 3% on there and we find a home that you like. I'm talking to the selling party to see what they're going to pay the buyer's realtor, and they say 2.5%. Our cap was 3%, so 2.5% is fine. Now, there are realtors that say we agreed on 3%, so you're responsible for the other 0.5%. Personally, that's not me. That's not how I work. I know that being a home buyer and buying a home is expensive. You've got your down payment, sometimes there's closing costs, there's inspections, other title fees, letter fees, etc. You might disagree, and that's fine, but ultimately the seller can't pay any realtor if the buyer doesn't buy the house. So it's ultimately like the seller is paying the realtors with the buyer's money. Debatable. I'm personally not a huge fan of these documents just because I think it confuses home buyers more than anything. At the same time, this is something that we're working with right now very seriously too, and it's important to be really well versed in it and understand exactly what you're getting into. Because as a home buyer, you literally cannot go look at homes unless you have one of these documents signed, because we as realtors are actually getting audited by our boards. So for instance, like the Austin Board of Realtors, to make sure that these documents are signed and in place. I've heard multiple times from different sources that if a realtor gets audited and they don't have a buyer's representation agreement and they're out showing homes to these clients, that there can be penalties as having their license suspended for a while. There could be a $2,500 fee for the first offense. If you do it again, it could be like $5,000. I don't know the exact numbers, but all of the real estate boards around the US are taking this very seriously. Now let's jump down to number 9. I want to talk about cancellation. Formal documents like this they're very official, but again, they can seem a bit more intimidating than they probably are. Basically, this last paragraph is just one sentence saying you can cancel this contract whenever you want. So let's say you enter into an agreement with a realtor for 2 months, and after maybe looking at 1 or 2 homes, you decide they're probably not a good fit. Essentially, what you just have to do is send them an email saying, we don't want to work with you anymore. Please void this buyer's representation agreement. And then that's that. You're out and you don't know anybody in me. So even though this is an official document, there are ways to get out of it. And then at the very bottom, you can see that is where you as a home buyer sign, you put your name, your contact information, and your realtor or broker would essentially do the same thing. Like I said, I know this stuff can get kind of confusing, and to be totally honest, it kind of confuses me too from time to time. As of now, these are the rules, and I don't think they're going to change anytime soon, though it is entirely possible. As a home buyer, it's important to understand what all of this stuff means. So if you guys have questions or don't understand something, leave a comment. I'd be delighted to keep the conversation going in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Daphne Quay, your Boss City Realtor here in Austin, Texas. Till next time.